Hey, this is Brandon Crawford from the San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to Torture Cast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Let's go, Giants! With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast. Standing on top, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down. Falling on, we're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a giant tonight.
Line drive, base hit. 3-1, San Francisco. Thompson has it, throws to first. It's over. 27 years of waiting have come to an end. The Giants have won the pennant. Go to the World Series! Oh, yeah!
Hello, everybody. It's Monday, August 12th, 2019, and this is episode 175 of the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me today, of course, as always, is Eric. And that intro there was a little familiar to us older Giants fans. That, of course, were audio highlights from some of the great moments of the 1989 Giants team, including the I Feel Good kind of rally call song. Of course, Will Clark screaming, Mike Krukow yelling, "We're going to the World Series," Hank Greenwald announcing for the first time in 27 years they won the pennant. It was just a freaking magical year. We will get into the details of the wonderful celebration they had at Oracle Park yesterday. But welcome, Eric. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm going to tell the listeners right now I'm a little shorthanded tonight. My computer decided to do updates. So I'm on Skype on my phone. So if it sounds like a podcast from 2014, that's probably because this is about how I did it in 2014.
Well, 2014 wouldn't be bad right now, I tell you that much.
That's the truth. That is the truth, because it reminds me of wonderful times like 1989. You know, it's so funny listening to that again. It just reminds me that I grew up, I was in fifth grade at the time, and I grew up outside of Chicago. So it was a Cubs, Giants, NLCS. And that is literally where the line, "I was a black hat among blue ones," comes from. I just remember going to school every single day, everybody decked out in their Cubs gear, and I had my Giants cap on. And then it was open house during the NLCS, and my parents came to meet my teacher. And my teacher said, "Yeah, your son hasn't been too popular lately because he's wearing his Giants stuff to school every day." And so 89 was my first real, 87 sucked me in, but 89 was my first real, memories of the Giants actually winning and doing things. And like you said, the names that you just mentioned, Clark and Krukow, and there's others that were there, Mitchell, and Robbie Thompson with the final out. I didn't see all of it, but from what I saw yesterday, it was a lot of fun that they had revisiting that 89 team.
Yeah, it was just a magical year. I'm a few years older than you. I went to my first game at Candlestick. I believe it was 1978 or 79. I just remember coming through the tunnel when you're that young, 5, 6 years old. I guess I was 5 or 6 at the time. Just seeing that green grass and that open space, especially when you're that young, it really hits you like, wow, this is a big place. And that was the first park I was introduced to, secondarily with the Coliseum, which is still in use today. And right. By today's standards, of course, Candlestick was an absolute dump, one of the worst in all of Major Leagues, and the Coliseum is right there, too, currently. It really is rated the worst baseball stadium currently in existence for the Major Leagues. But that's what I knew, and that's what I grew up with. So I thought that was the jewel of baseball. But to be there for all those games, to see the Giants do horribly in the early 80s, including the 100-loss season of 1984. I remember that distinctly. I was 10 that season. And then, ramping up to where they got good. And my first taste of the playoffs was the experience in 1987. And, how it just ended so bitterly with Candy Maldonado losing the ball in the lights in right field in Busch Stadium. And, they had chances to win that series, and it just didn't happen. And then, of course, they had the hiccup in 88, and then 89 come roaring back. And, clinching with Robbie Thompson, Mitch Williams delivering, and Clark hitting it up the middle, for the sealer. And I mean, and then going to the World Series. And we all know what happened to the World Series. Unfortunately, the earthquake had probably a little bit something to do with it. But hey, let's give credit where credit is due. The A's were an unbelievable machine that year, and they already had a 2-0 lead. So it's just that they were able to reset. we
didn't reset. They reset the rotation. We didn't reset the rotation, and I'm with you. The A's probably had that series wrapped up, but at least maybe the Giants could have won a game then.
Yeah, just a game, something like that. But I remember my friend who his dad had season tickets, and he still has season tickets to this day at Candlestick. He is an oncologist, studies cancer, and that particular year in 1989, he won the Nobel Prize for, I don't know if it was medicine, but it was one of the subsets, they have the different disciplines. I don't know if it was medicine or biology or whatever it was, but his dad freaking won the Nobel Prize. Or like literally they flew to Switzerland and they did the whole presentation, the carpet, the whole thing. So he was invited to throw out the first pitch for Game 3 at Candlestick Park.
Oh, wow.
And the earthquake happened. And then they pushed him back to Game 5 because they said, we're going to have the EMS and the heroes and all the other people who helped with the earthquake throw out the first pitch, which is totally understandable. And, of course, they were swept. So they never got to Game 5 for his. So his dad never got to throw out the first pitch. He's still bitter about that. But anyway, so we'll get to the 89 celebration in a bit. But it's been 2 weeks since we recorded. We're really, really sorry we missed last week, guys. That was my fault. I couldn't go on Monday because of my schedule. Then we tried on Wednesday or Tuesday. And then Eric got a little sick, and it's just been crazy. We're recording on a Monday night. My kids are probably going to burst through the door any second with the dog and start bitching about something that the other one did. So bear with us. Thank you so much for hanging with us. But that's what, look, it's a real life. This isn't our job. We do what we can.
Yeah. If we were getting paid to do this, it'd be a little different.
But
we'd carve up.
God, we have so much to talk about. I mean, from the trade deadline to all the transactions to what's happened in the playoffs to the 89 celebration. So let's go ahead and start with a recap of where the Giants are right now. They're currently one game under 500 at 59-60. Third place in the National League West, 19.5 games back of LA, but they are 3.5 games back of the wild card. With 5 teams ahead of them. So, they're dipping a little bit. But to be honest, they're 5-8 since we last recorded, and they only lost 1 game in that time. Now, granted, another team has slipped ahead of them. They've traded places, basically. New York, the Mets have just gotten so hot. They went ahead of them. Arizona went back ahead of them. So their position has weakened since we last recorded, but they are certainly by no means out of it. What's insane is after winning 7 series in a row, the Giants lost 3 straight series until they finally won 3 out of 4 from Philly this weekend. They lost 6 games in all of July. They had already lost 6 by August 7th, a few days ago, right? And now their playoff chances, which were all the way up to 8 or 9% last time we recorded, according to 538.com, have plummeted to 3%. But that really has to do a lot with the amount of teams ahead of them losing that extra game, how they've been playing recently, and, of course, their strength of schedule. Eric, we talked about it 2 weeks ago and how they really controlled their own destiny by a good portion because of their opponents that were in the wild card race. They had like 40% of their games remaining were against teams like the Phillies and the Cardinals and the Nationals, right? And they freaking laid an egg against the Phillies and the Nats combined. They went 3-7 against those 2 teams over 10 games. So, I mean, that's what's going to hurt them ultimately. If we look back and they miss the wild card by 2, 3, 4 games, I think we can look to these kinds of stretches where they go 3-7 against those wild card contenders.
Yeah, I was all full of hope. Like when we last recorded, they were entering the Philly series, and we said it. You got to beat the teams that are ahead of you, and 2 out of 3 would have been great. But losing 2 out of 3 to Colorado after losing 2 out of 3 to Philly, and then you're supposed to feel better when you come home. Yeah. And they came home against Washington and just absolutely laid, like you said, the biggest egg. I mean, they got shut out 4-0 the first night. They lost 4-1 the last night, which could have been a shutout as well. And it just was a completely different team. Once they got home, once they cooled off their bats, they were a completely different team. And while they're still in it, like you said, it's a little more difficult now. The Mets, out of nowhere, have done what the Giants did in July. They are on a streak to send them back up the standings, because we used to joke about the Mets. The Mets and the Marlins were the worst two teams in the National League. And here they are ahead of the Giants, and I still don't know how.
Well, they won, what, 15 out of 16 or something ridiculous like that? I mean,
yeah, after they played the Giants.
Yeah, after they played the Giants, they went on this crazy streak. So thank God the Giants played them when they did. But, yeah, they went nuclear just like the Giants. So
Giants took 3 or 4 from the Mets in mid-July. Mm-hmm. And then after that was when they took off. And it's frustrating. I'm, as a fan, frustrated after the last 2 weeks, because I really thought they were in a position to do things for themselves. And I feel like now they're at a point where they're going to need help. Yes, they've got 4 games against Arizona this weekend and another 2 the week after that. You know, they still have to play St. Louis 4 times. They still, and that's like it for everybody ahead of them in the wild card race, what I'm looking at right now. Since I don't have the notes, I have the schedule. You know, so it makes their task that much tougher. It just does. They're going to need help from other teams, and it's entirely possible that it'll be there. But it's, you know, it's a long shot. We knew it was a long shot 2 weeks ago, and you know, I said it the other day. As long as this season's fun under Bochy, and it's turning out to be fun under Bochy, then I'm good either way. You know, playoffs is gravy. Everything's gravy. It's just frustrating that the starting pitching can't get it together aside from Bumgarner and Samardzija.
Yeah, with Bochy's last season, the team needs to get to 74 wins to get him to 2,000. They're at 59. So I think you were saying that's 15 more wins for the Giants to get. And we got, you know, more than half of August and all of September to get 15 wins. I'm going to presume the Giants are capable of doing that. I swear to God, if they don't, then sorry, Bochy, R.I.P. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's 15 wins in 43 games. And earlier this season, we were talking about how we weren't sure they were going to get there. So like I said, they've turned this into a fun season again. Bochy seems to have a reason to go to the ballpark every day. Like, they even joked with him on the ESPN interview last night. Like, in games like this, doesn't it make you want to stay? Because he had to make moves, and he outmanaged Gabe Kapler on Sunday night so well. He used the bullpen so well, which has always been his strength. And so it's just nice to see that they're playing for him and playing for the other guy. It's just the most frustrating thing is, as much fun as they're having, the starting pitching has taken a hit, and Bumgarner and Samardzija are the only ones that seem to be coming through right now. And I still can't believe I'm saying Samardzija in that breath.
Yeah, Samardzija, I mean, what's really frustrating is I know that he's been hot. He's in our Who's Hot list, and we'll get to his stats later. I went to the game last week on Monday when they played the Nats, and they actually he pitched not well in the sense of number of pitches. He didn't even allow a run, but he was up at like 98 pitches after 4 innings. Every other start, he's been good, so maybe I was bad luck for him that night. But overall, yeah, Shark and Mad Bum have been fantastic. Fantastic in the second half. They can't find a 3-4-5 right now, and that's been one of their biggest weaknesses. And not only that, but even though the bullpen, we'll talk about some of the transactions which did affect their bullpen right now, the whole team has been kind of bitten by the sloppy bug, to be honest. The pitching and the relievers, they've been walking a hell of a lot more than they have in the past. And I think that's been one of the Achilles heels of this kind of losing 2-week stretch. In fact, their offense has been better than the rest of the year, hitting around 250 during that stretch. It's been their free runs and free passes they've been giving to the opposition that's really been biting them in the ass.
Yeah, it seems to be killing them a little bit. I believe Bochy even said it. Connor Menez started yesterday. He's already been optioned. And he said his biggest frustration is these guys, it's just walks. Everybody, it's walks. If it's not these young starters, like you said, it's the young bullpen guys, even when like Suarez comes in. You know, it reminds me during that Colorado series, they only took 1 of 3 in Denver, and they were lucky to take the one game they took. They played sloppy. They just did not overall have it, but they were able to, on Buster Posey's base hit, score the 2 runs that they needed to take the lead and eventually the win. But it's just been a lot of sloppy baseball lately, not Giants baseball in the sense that we're used to. We're used to good pitching and good defense, and good pitching means not clogging the bases with runners, and we haven't seen much of that lately at all. So, I mean, as much fun as we're having, there's still some glaring holes that we can obviously see that aren't going to be fixed by the end of this season. But as long as, what I say, 43 games, win 15 of 43. That's, not a big win percentage. That's 15 and what is that, 28? I think they can handle that and get Boshi to 74 and at least have something positive come out of this season if they don't reach the wild.
Yeah, they got to play just north of 333 baseball. I'm really hoping they can do that. That's worse than Orioles territory at this point. So hopefully they can muster that. Okay, so let's talk about one of the emotional movements that happened last week. We were going to talk about it, but more has transpired since it. But with all the moves they made at the trade deadline, which we'll review in a minute, we're kind of going reverse order here, I know. They DFA'd Joe Panik. And I think everybody saw it coming the day that the Giants announced they acquired Scooter Gennett. How many Major League Baseball teams need two left-handed hitting second basemen? They don't. So I think Joe already knew that they were shopping. I mean, it was all over the media and on sports radio. We got to strengthen the right side of the infield. We got to, get rid of Panik here. And one of the reasons for this, a lot of people say, oh, well, why not Crawford? Why not Belt? Why not these guys? And it's like, well, there's arguments for that. Obviously you have a perennial Gold Glove shortstop. You have an excellent defender over at first base who leads the team in on-base percentage and contributes in other ways. But Joe Panik, over the last couple of years especially, has just really done fairly poorly. In fact, he was, out of all qualified hitters, there was 147 at the time. He was dead last, 147th in both on-base percentage and slugging percentage, and he had similar numbers last year. I don't know why. I love the guy. He's contributed so much to the Giants, but the way Farhan has come in and just cleaned house, he's like, look, I gotta get rid of the old chaff. I gotta get rid of the fat here. I gotta get rid of guys who just aren't contributing and give the new guys, or at least proven veterans, a chance. And if they don't do it, they're also going to be cut too. So it's not like he's preferring anyone. It's certainly a different take than the old regime. If Bobby Evans was still in here, Panik, there's no way he would have been DFA'd. He might even been given a contract extension for all we know.
That's true. I'm looking at Panik's stats. His rookie year, he had an OPS of 711, and then it jumped up to 833 in 2015. And 2016, there was a little down. 2017, he was back up to 768. But the last 2 years, I mean, this is a guy who was hitting 288, and then now suddenly he's hitting 254 and 236. Yeah. So, I give Farhan credit for pulling the trigger when it needed to be done. I love Joe. And I always will. I actually started retweeting some of my old tweets about Joe Panik. I absolutely love Joe. I've had a huge love affair with him since he came up. He's the mini buster, and his work ethic was great. Everybody seemed to love him in the locker room, and he was a clutch hitter. And that stuff has just eroded over time, and it's a shame because Joe Panik brought us a ton of memories.
Yeah, the previous game I had covered, I was able to chat with him a little bit and show him that video on my phone of his double that won that game in the 8th inning when Sam Dyson, who's also no longer with the team, had to leap over his double, and he got a kick out of that. I've interviewed him a few times. He's just a really nice guy. It's unfortunate. But like you said, I mean, look, he came up his rookie year, hit 305. The next year, 312, and that's when he made the All-Star team. Next year, he dipped 239, then 288, 254, now 235.6 this year. He does have a Gold Glove in 2016. But I think at this point, you know who the player is. And right. He's certainly not going to come and hit 20 home runs in a year. He's not going to go hit 330 for you. He's never going to do that again. I'm sure with the Mets, who, by the way, when he was DFA'd, he denied the assignment to AAA, which was understandable. Mets signed him to a one-year contract for $555,000. That's where he's from. He's from Queens, so he's from that area, and he's home. And in fact, when he was released, he said, I would like, and this is a quote, I would like to thank the Giants, especially John Barr, Brian Sabian, and Bobby Evans, for drafting me and giving me the opportunity to play for such a great organization. I would like to thank Boch, along with all of the coaches I've had throughout my time here. Thank you to all my teammates. We have experienced some truly amazing moments together that I will never forget. To the fans, it was an amazing 6 seasons. Thank you for all the passion and support you have given us players. Nothing has driven me more than winning here in San Francisco. I am forever grateful for the Giants taking the chance on me and allowing me to live out my lifelong dream. It's time for me to start the next chapter in my career, but in my heart, I will always be a Giant. So yeah, even though he's a New York kid, he obviously, this is his. I'm sure most of these guys who come up with one team, the team who drafts them, you owe it to them. You're part of their family, and certainly 6 years and a World Series title, and an All-Star nod. I mean, and a Gold Glove. He's had made some wonderful memories here, and it's just sad to go. So I thought it was worth it. Just even though we shouldn't focus too much on Joe Panik, I just feel like it's worth it to give him a little bit of a tribute. So I have a few audio clips here, and this first one is his first major league hit on June 22nd, 2014.
The center fielder to the shortstop to the third baseman, 8-6-5. Joe Panik, and there's his first major league hit. Left center field, and it gets away from Ross. Panik gets the extra base. And the Panik family is very excited.
So that was cool. Nothing wrong with that. Go ahead.
That was a 2-out hit.
Yeah.
I'm not
you were waiting for that.
That was a 2-out hit. I'm going through my old tweets, and my thing says, "Oh, Joe Panik with a 2-out hit for his first major league hit. He fits right in."
That's awesome. Look at that.
So no wonder why I took a shine to the guy.
Yeah, look at that. His first major league hit was a 2-out hit, and you watched it and tweeted about it. That's great. All right, second highlight is from that same year, of course, in the playoffs, October 16th, Game 5 against the Cardinals at Oracle Park, well, then AT&T. This was a crucial home run. It was not the game winner. We know what happened later in that game with Ishikawa and everything. But this was a crucial home run in this game that extended the Giants' 1-0 lead.
Baseball's founded on for me.
Oh, sorry.
That is hit down the line and right at the wall. It is gone. 2-run home run.
I misspoke. Of course, St. Louis was leading 1-0 at the time.
On the first postseason home run by the rookie Joe Panik.
So think about that. I mean, you're a rookie. You hit 305 for the year. You come in, it's your first postseason. You're in the NLCS at home, Game 5, and you hit a home run to give them the lead. And, of course, that was crucial to winning that game. That was pretty cool.
That was a great moment.
You remember that home run? I mean, I do.
I do.
Again,
it was right.
Not the biggest home run. It's not the Buster Posey grand slam or a Cody Ross home run off of Halladay, but it was a big home run.
Yeah, I think he hammered that one, too. I don't think that was a cheapie. I think it might have just barely gotten out to right field because it was down the line, but he absolutely put both cheeks into that one.
Yeah, no, it was not off the tin roof. It wasn't a splash hit, but it was well done. And, of course, the final highlight is the one that everybody refers to and everybody tweeted about in Facebook all week long. Game 7 of the 2014 World Series against the Kansas City Royals at Kauffman Stadium. Of course, with a runner on first and nobody out. The infamous double play that helped keep the score tied.
Here's one up the middle. Panik, what a play! Gets one and safe at first. Unbelievable diving play by Joe Panik to take a hit away and almost get 2.
And of course, we know that was under review. I mean, I was screaming at home at the time, going, "That's 2! That's 2! He slid head first!" And sure enough, they showed the slow-mo replay, and it was clear as day that he was out. But my God, I mean, it's not just the dive he made, but then the glove flip. Like, he didn't pop up to his knees and flip it with his hand. He glove flipped it. That thing could have gone horribly wrong. Eric, I've tried a glove flip. I've gotten a few successful glove flips, but there are ones that go really awry. And you flick 20 feet off to the left because it just came out wrong, Yeah,
it hangs on the edge of the glove or something like that.
Exactly.
Joe Panik really showed that he is the type of player, and this is why I actually thought he would have been a good trade target for teams that were in the hunt. He is the type of player that when the team is running well, he does well and steps up. Mm-hmm. And when the team isn't going as well, he doesn't seem to go as well. And his baptism by fire in 2014 just absolutely proved that, which is why it was just so frustrating to see these things happen at this point. I'll never forget that double play, though. That is one of those Giants memories that will have burned forever. Hosmer diving for first base. And all you're thinking when you see it is, oh, my God, you idiot. If you had run through the bag, you would have been safe.
Absolutely. He would have been safe if he ran through the bag. And the other highlight I'm not going to play because it's a walk, and there's nothing exciting about the call of a walk. But do you remember the 2014 epic game that went 18 innings against the Nationals? In the 9th inning, when Pablo hit that double to tie the game, it was a 2-out walk to Joe Panik in the top of the 9th. He's the one who scored the run. Of course, later it was Buster Posey who's thrown out at the plate to prevent or to keep it tied. But of course, Brandon Belt hit the home run in the 18th to win it. So again, he doesn't have like that one amazing grand slam or home run, but he has some key moments in Giants history that enable them to win these World Series, or just propel them to the World Series. So we miss you, Joe. He's a wonderful kid. It is what it is, but this is the game of baseball, and you got to move on. And this is like Bill Walsh, cutting the ties. Maybe even too late at this point, but certainly not too early. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Joe does fit the moniker though, Forever Giant, because he will forever be a Giant.
Yeah, this is not like Armando Benitez, Forever Giant. That doesn't work. So.
Right.
Dan Ugla, Forever Giant. No. And he got a freaking World Series ring, by the way.
Yeah, he did, for striking out, 9 times?
Yeah. Oh, and he wore number 22, by the way. Okay, so.
But no.
Oh, yeah, and Joe also had a negative WAR this year, 0.4. So, again, not proving valuable, and it was about time. But anyway, let's talk about the trade deadline. Oh my God, so much happened, and this would have been the absolute first topic we would have talked about last week. The reason we kind of buried it now is it's been 2 weeks, and you guys know all about it. So we're gonna do kind of a brief review, but you put it here in the notes, kind of what are your overall thoughts of what Farhan pulled off, and I'll go ahead and start. I think both of us, a couple of months ago, and certainly even a month before the trade deadline, said, just go ahead and pull it. Rip off the Band-Aid. Trade bum. Do it. You got to rebuild now. They're not making the playoffs. Blah, blah, blah. But my God, the team responded, had that incredible July. They told the front office, we can do this. We have the tools to do this. Do not decimate us. Do not pull the plug on us. You got to have our back. And at the same time, fans and the front office and the ownership have got to be also saying, well, you can't really add too much because that's going to gut our already non-existent or very weak farm system. So there's not really much you can do to build this team either, and we don't want you to miss on incredible opportunities to rebuild. Like if you were to be floored with an offer, don't say no to that because that's going to affect us a couple years down the road. I think, speaking just 2 weeks after the deadline, Farhan did an incredible job of threading the needle. The moves he made not only kept Smith and Bumgarner on the team, two very crucial pieces, but he traded away their strength, which was the bullpen, and actually added a few parts, not only with Scooter Gennett and these young studs coming in, including a couple of outfielders and a couple of pitchers. But I thought the fleecing of the century, or at least of the year, I should say, was getting the Atlanta Braves to take Melanson and his entire flippin' contract. I just, that alone is just like, Farhan, you're the man. You are the man.
Yep. If that was the only move they made, this trade deadline was a success. And wow. I still don't understand how he did it. Melanson, and you've talked to Melanson. He's a decent guy. He seems like very heady. But that contract was an albatross on the books. And, I don't know how he got them to do that. As the news filtered out, you could see the beat writers slowly be like, wait a second.
Well, yeah, how much are the Giants eating? Yeah, I mean, the Giants got to be eating half of this, right? Nope.
Nope. $18 million going, Atlanta now has to worry about.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked at his stats specifically yet, but I don't think it's working out too well.
It's not working out. He blew it last night with 3 runs in the ninth. Sam Dyson has not been working out with Minnesota. And in fact, I don't have it in front of me, so don't shoot me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was around. Oh, you have it for the combined trade, the guys who were traded?
Yes.
And what their stat? Okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah. Danny shared it last night. Old friend of the pod.
That's right.
Drew Pomerantz, Sam Dyson, and Mark Melanson's combined numbers since leaving the Giants. That's just Palm, Dyson, and Melanson, which is actually the only bullpen guys they got rid of. 10 innings pitched, 12 earned runs, 16 hits, 6 walks. So their ERA is combined at like 11.
Yeah.
Their WHIP is at 2.2.
Oh.
Wow. He doesn't have strikeouts listed, but I can't imagine that number. That
don't
number
think
doesn't
it
matter.
matters. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I just know that Dyson came in right away and got lit up, and then got lit up in his third appearance, and then now Melanson's been lit up. I mean, I don't want these guys to do poorly. That's not at all what Giants fans want. We want them to do well because they're human beings and we're human beings, and we don't want people to fail. It's not their fault that the Giants traded them. Well, I mean, it is, but you know what I'm saying. It's like no one has any ill will against them. We just don't want them to beat us should we ever face them again, right? But yeah, to see them do so poorly right after the trade deadline is a little bit of what was that German term that I'm thinking of?
Schadenfreude.
Yeah, Schadenfreude. That is it. Schadenfreude. Where you kind of take a little bit of pleasure in the failure and misery of others. And it is a little bit of that Schadenfreude because you're kind of like, hee hee, you know, like, okay. And, you know, Farhan, I'm sure, is doing a little like, all right, told you so. It's fine. Look, they were dealing from a position of bullpen strength. And aside from Sam Dyson, who was really, really good with the Giants this year, and Melanson showed brief glimpses. He had little stretches that we talked about the very, very beginning of the year and actually right before the trade deadline, which honestly probably was the last-ditch bit of info the Braves used to go, well, okay, maybe he can continue this streak for us, right? Because he didn't come in sloppy. So maybe that helped the Giants' trade position. I think it did. And that's what happened. So the Giants didn't significantly weaken their bullpen, I thought, other than Dyson leaving. I didn't care about Melanson leaving. I certainly didn't care about Pomerantz. Granted, he had like 9 shutout innings out of the pen, but that's not who he was. He wasn't going to be some sub-2 ERA bullpen guy.
No. That was the other thing is you used the exact right term. Farhan threaded the needle and was able to trade from strength. And it's just ironic that strength turned to crap as soon as it left San Francisco. I mean, I don't know if these guys miss Buster. I don't know if they miss, the clubhouse and certain things like that. But it really, I don't think these are going to be how they're pitching a month from now. But it just really helped highlight how much Farhan actually won the trade deadline. Oh, and he made all the right moves. Not only did he get Scooter Gennett for cash from the Reds, which also feels like a heist, because I don't remember Scooter's contract status at the moment. And I'm going to be honest here. I had to really come to terms with rooting for a grown man named Scooter. I mean, Scooter's a kid's name. Scooter is the Muppet Babies. And as I found out last night, that's where he got named from.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah,
so it's
apparently,
from the Muppet Baby. Okay.
Yeah, apparently there was some story where he was being all unruly in the backseat of his mom's car at the age of 5, and he wouldn't stay in his car seat. So she drove to the police station God. To have the cops talk to him. And he was scared because he felt like he was in trouble. So instead of giving his name, which I believe is Ryan, instead of giving his name to the cop, he gave Scooter because Scooter was his favorite Muppet Babies character. And the family started calling him Scooter. So that aside, I had to come to terms with rooting for a grown man named Scooter. I know that we root for a grown man named Buster, but Buster is more of the, he's like the old guy that's sitting around dropping knowledge. Scooter is like the 60-year-old man walking around the mall and matching jumpsuits with his wife. It's not a good look. And if any of you out there do that, I totally apologize for your wife making you do that. But Scooter, they got him in a heist, and then they got Dubon to back him up, who's still in the minor leagues, as the future second baseman, possibly shortstop, because this Dubon guy hasn't played a lot of second base. He's actually played more shortstop than second base. So there's a little undercurrent of Brandon Crawford needs to get it together, or Farhan might be willing to move on from him after this year.
I know. You feel it. You feel like Farhan really put the writing on the wall. Not that it was an intentional thing. Not like he's like, you better shape up, guys, or anything like that. It's just, I think the players have to recognize that the days of the thank you contracts and letting you hang around just because you're beloved by the fan base and you did things 5 years ago, those days are over. Yep. You have to perform. If you do not perform, you're gone.
Yeah, this is no longer the Bobby Evans, Brian Sabian way of doing business. And I, for one, as a Giants fan, I'm actually happy to see this. Mm-hmm. We've been stuck in neutral and stuck in the past for so long that I felt like hiring Farhan was going to take them to the future. And then this trade deadline just showed me that absolutely the Giants are not going to be that team that just disappears. We're not going to be talking about a 68-win team next year or a 72-win team next year. They're going to stay in contention. Farhan can do this on the fly. He has shown that with all these different moves, getting Dick, getting Yaz, making these trades that he made, was able to offload a contract. Ray Black needed a new place. I totally was fine with him going in the Pomerantz deal for Dubon. So, it's like you said, he has put the writing on the wall. He has said, perform or you're gone. That's what this business is about. And as much as we are humans, like you mentioned, talking about Joe Panik, there is still that cut and dry, black and white aspect to the game. And it's nice to see management taking that stance and willing to just be cut and dry about it. So I thought the Giants were one of the biggest winners on the trade deadline. The Astros, they might have come. Everybody anointed the Astros as the new World Series champion because they traded for Greinke. I mean, that was a nice trade, but I mean, look at the Braves of the '90s. It doesn't win you a championship.
And even the national media, you're right. There were a lot of them were saying, the Astros might have been the top, but there were a lot of national beat writers that were like, I think the Giants did the best because they did so much to not weaken their team. They actually slightly strengthened their current team, and they certainly reloaded some of their prospects. So they didn't give away really anything overall. It was a net positive for them. It wasn't even like a neutral thing. It wasn't like they traded strength for strength. I mean, they traded strength and got back a hell of a lot more than they gave up. So the net was a very large bump for them, and they didn't weaken their current team. And if again, social media is so stupid with all the Giants Facebook posts and all that stuff saying, wow, they've lost, all these games in a row because they lost their team chemistry. Farhan ripped them up. And I know that's a minority voice, but it was like Melanson and Pomerantz and Ray Black, and they were the crucial to team chemistry? Okay. Right. Like, no, of course not.
It sounds weird, but the key to Farhan's trade deadline was not trading Bumgarner and Smith.
Yes.
Because when you want to talk about that clubhouse chemistry, those two guys are actually very much at the center of it. Bumgarner has, there is just a presence that he has that other guys don't have. And you can't quantify that in the black and white numbers like you can with other guys. Smith, I mean, I said it, if they trade him, I wouldn't be shocked if he were to come back. And now I won't be shocked if Smith hangs around for a few more years. I won't be shocked if Bumgarner signs an extension now and stays a Giant for his career. None of that would surprise me. I actually thought the move to clear Melanson money off the books was to maybe put together some money for the Bumgarner contract extension.
That's exactly what I thought. The fact that he got the Braves to take $18 million was like, what if that is the difference in signing him long term? Not only that, but Bumgarner's not going to take the supreme hometown discount, the crazy hometown discount, but he may take a discount, and so that might help too, where both numbers may come together.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And that's but that was the key, is you could tell he wasn't just making moves for today. He was making moves for today and the future at the same time. So he did not take my advice and the future, but he strengthened the future while strengthening the present. I'm with you. I was shocked that national writers actually said the Giants had a good deadline, because we're not used to them saying good things about the Giants front office.
Not to derail us, but just make sure you don't bump your mic in between. I'm hearing it when I'm talking. Sounds like it's rubbing against your beard or shirt or something like that. It's going.
Pulled it out. All right, I pulled it out a little. Hopefully it'll be better.
Okay, so yesterday they had an incredible celebration. I really wish I could have gone. That's definitely a game I wanted to cover. But they celebrated the 1989 San Francisco Giants, which we talked about at the top of the show. I watched the part of the streaming event, which was fantastic. They had so many of the 89 Giants there. My God, they had freaking Roger Craig. there. I knew he was still alive, but I didn't know if he like was with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I did.
I thought he might be drooling somewhere in a hospital bed. I didn't know, but he was there. Obviously, the main guys: Will Clark and Robbie Thompson and Terry Kennedy, Dave DeVecchi, Scott Garrelts, Kelly Downs, Mike Krukow. The list goes on and on and on. It's incredible how many guys they got back there. And, those who've departed, like Juan Uribe and Wendell Kim, the third base coach. But Mike Murphy, of course, is still the equipment manager. He's been there for 50 plus years, which is cool to see him. And then I admit there was a couple of guys they trotted out there that were part of the team, and I'm like, I literally don't remember you. It was like some utility player that had like 10 at-bats with the Giants, and they're like, you around still? You want to come? All right, cool, you're here. I had to go look him up, But what an incredible year that was. We already talked about that, but I just wanted to say that there was a surprise announcement, which you all know about now, but Larry Baer came out and announced that they are retiring Will Clark's number 22 next year, and I just lost my shit. As you know, Eric, Will Clark is by far my absolute favorite player ever. My man cave here that I'm recording in right now, my downstairs office, looks like a 14-year-old boy's room. It is just plastered with Giants everything. I've got newspaper clippings, stickers, bats. I've got like my 5 jerseys hanging on the wall with all my hats, banners, all the magazine covers from Sports Illustrated. I've got my Will Clark signed rookie card, my Will Clark 8x10, my Will Clark pennant, my Will Clark hat. I've got, just so much stuff around me that he signed for, my Eagle Scout, which I got when I was 17 or 18. That meant so much to me, and obviously meant way more to him and his family. But I think there were just so many fans that were touched by it because there's been this effort and momentum to try and retire his number because, he's not a Hall of Famer, and we all knew that. But that didn't change how we felt about the guy, and we felt like he was worthy of his number getting retired. And he even said that it was Barry Bonds' number being retired last year that opened the door because the Giants had a condition that we will not retire a number unless you are in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And they basically broke that rule for Barry Bonds last year, which opened up the door for Will Clark. And I, for one, am all for it.
I was stunned. I really was. I did not expect
I was totally stunned.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to do that. Nobody knew the announcement was coming either. It was kind of one of those things where, like if you weren't paying attention when it happened, you kind of look online later and you're like, wait, what? Really? And so I was a little surprised that they decided to go with it. But I can't think of a better Giant from the newer generation to bestow this honor upon. He was worth more to the Giants than a plaque on the wall. No offense to certain guys who have plaques on the wall, but he was worth more than that. I mean, he set the tone when he came in his first at bat and homered off Nolan. He just was not – he was different. And I totally get why a young Chad King would, fall in love with Will Clark. Me being, in a different part of the country, yes, I loved Will. I absolutely did. And, when my buddies and I would play baseball in the backyard and I would decide to swing lefty, I would absolutely emulate that easy, smooth swing of his. It's funny. They actually compared his swing to Bryce Harper's last night in the sense that Will's was just so smooth.
It was smooth. Yes.
Yeah, that's like just the word to describe it. It was like a hot knife through butter. And then you watch Harper, and it's like herky-jerky and violent and everything like that. But the bottom line is the results are the same. But visually speaking, it was just so enjoyable to watch Will Clark play baseball. The way he stood in the box, the way he stared down. I'll never forget his grand slam in the '89 NLCS off of Greg Maddux.
Off of Maddux, yes.
Yep. After reading Maddox's lips. If he had not read Maddox's lips, I don't know if we talked about this recently, or maybe I was talking to somebody else.
No, it wasn't us.
That was the genesis for all these guys covering their mouths with their gloves and their hands now. Is Will Clark saw Maddux say on the mound what he was going to try to do to get him out. And so Will looked for a specific pitch in a specific location, and when he got it, he hit it because he knew that pitch was coming. And so now, as everybody's like, why are they always covering their mouths when they're talking at the mound or things like that? It's all because Will Clark saw that. He went back to the dugout, and he told Kevin Mitchell, and Mitchell couldn't keep it to himself. He told everybody. And that's where it came from. And I mentioned earlier, a young kid growing up in the Chicago area, to have a huge Giants moment right in my backyard. Will Clark is one of the reasons that I stayed a Giants fan as a kid and didn't drift off to the Cubs. Because that's entirely possible when you're surrounded by those kind of fans. So for all the fans, like you said, it's fantastic that they're doing it, that they're retiring 22. There's been a groundswell for it for like 6 or 7 years now. So like Will said, Bonds retiring, his number opened up that door. But I think for fans of our generation, this is I don't want to say it's more for us than him, but I feel like this is really a nod to us as well.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I mean, no one appreciates it more than him, too. I mean, he genuinely, in his reactions, he was like a kid in a candy store. I mean, he is so thankful for this. And he even said, "This is my Hall of Fame." And it's important to him. And even though he was traded to Texas, and by the way, that was in 1993, or, late 93, after the 93 season in which they won 103 games. And it was probably the greatest. I mean, it is the greatest Giants team I have ever witnessed in my lifetime. There's the 1993 Giants, and they didn't even make the playoffs. And we've gone over that before. The Atlanta Braves won 104 games on the last day of the season, blah, blah, blah. But I was in college at the time. I graduated in 95, so I guess I was in my sophomore year, junior year, whatever. And I remember I was at a fraternity party that November or whatever it was. And when they got the news that he was with Texas, and I lost my shit. I did. I was so devastated. I couldn't believe that the San Francisco Giants would let this happen, that they wouldn't sign him, lock him up long term. And obviously I followed Will Clark after he went from Texas, and then he was with the, Baltimore. In fact, I went to Camden Yards to see the Orioles against the Rangers when he was still with the Rangers and saw him play there. That was in 1995 when I was out there.
Wow.
And then eventually to the St. Louis Cardinals. And, in the year 2000 or whatever it was, I mean, he still was hitting like 320. I mean, the dude was like amazing. He aged so gracefully. He was like a bottle of wine. He just never got worse. And he retired much earlier than he needed to, but he did because of his son, right? Because of the whole
autism with his son,
thing. Yeah. So, and that's why he retired early. And if he had played a few more years, I'm not saying he would have made the Hall of Fame, but he was just a great guy in the sense of he sacrificed the rest of his career and playing at a very good level to take care of his son who has autism, and he still contributes to that. They have Autism Awareness Night at Oracle Park all the time, and that's one of the reasons he came back to the Giants is. He loves the Giants. He considers himself always a Giant, and not a Ranger, not an Oriole, not a Cardinal. He considers himself always a Giant. But again, I would have always been a Giants fan, I presume, but it really was Will Clark coming up in 1986 that fueled my fandom. I mean, I was 12 years old at the time, really getting into baseball, and I just latched onto him and rode him all the way from 86 through 93. From high school and into college. And that really locked me in, Eric. I mean, I got to say, if it wasn't for Will Clark, I'm sure I would be a Giants fan. But I don't know if I'd be doing a podcast right now. I got to be honest. I don't know if I would be that fervent about baseball fandom and the Giants itself. I'd be like, like I'm a 49er fan, right? But I'm not crazy. I'm a Warriors fan. Not crazy. I'm a Sharks fan. Not crazy. I'm crazy about the Giants. So I think
it's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference, I think, when you say you're a fan or you're a fanatic. And I'm a fanatic about the Giants. So, anyway, go ahead.
I was going to say, it stands to reason why you fell in love with him. He was an all-star for 5 years out of his 8 years in San Francisco. And that's the other thing. He only played 8 years in San Francisco, but it feels like he was there for like 15 years.
I know.
It really does. He only hit 176 home runs in a Giants uniform. So it's not like he... did the majority. I mean, he had 284 in his overall career. But, I mean, he still, like you said, went on to have a decent career after he left the Giants because he had that swing, much like a Harold Baines, that ages really, really well. Mm-hmm. And he was able to keep his bat head in the zone. I mean, this is a guy who, look at that. He hit 319 in 2000 in limited action. He hit 303 the year before that. There's only... like 3 seasons he hit under 300. He had a 303 batting average for his career. So, it's interesting to see the Giants actually do this. I'm shocked. I really am. I'm absolutely shocked that they're doing.
I was shocked by it. I didn't think it would ever happen, even after Barry Bonds got his number retired, because I figured that doesn't really count about the whole not Hall of Fame thing, because it's like it's freaking Barry Bonds. He leads Major League Baseball history in home runs and what he did. But what I will say about this is that no matter how happy I am, what you just brought up is that he only played 8 seasons with the Giants. To consider that guys like Buster Posey and Madison Bumgarner have played longer already with the Giants than Will Clark ever did, and that those two guys brought 3 World Series championships to San Francisco. Will Clark never did, right? Not saying it was his fault. What does that mean? I mean, if Will Clark is worthy of getting his number retired, clearly at the very, very, very minimum, Madison Bumgarner and number 28 and number 40 are being retired. Period. That's happening, right? Yeah. And wouldn't you also even throw in a guy like maybe Tim Lincecum because of what he did? I don't know. It's like you start thinking about this slippery slope of like how many numbers can they retire, and I don't suggest that it's going to get down to 35 for Crawford or anything like that, but it's an interesting conundrum for the Giants brass to kind of figure out. I think 28 and 40 are locks now to get retired, but after that, I think there are going to be people that are going to be bickering about certain players that should be retired.
And 15. And 15 for
yes.
Bruce. Yep.
For Bruce. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yep. And you bring up a great point, and this almost jives with, I don't know where the directive came from. I don't know if it was Larry Baer behind the scenes. I don't know if Farhan had a say in any of this, but it, like you said, it opens up this door, and it actually ushers in. This is part of ushering in a new generation of San Francisco Giants baseball. It really is. They're starting to say, okay, we're not going to be as uptight as we once were. We're not going to be, Sabian ran the franchise like he learned in the Yankees organization. Mm-hmm. Farhan didn't learn that way. He's not as uptight about certain things, and he has reverence for the game, but he's also willing to see the good things that have come of it. And I think it's influenced the front office. That's why I don't say it's Farhan's choice, but I think it's influenced the front office in that way. And it does. It opens up the door for all these things. And I'm happy for Will Clark because, I mentioned the Forever Giant moniker earlier. Mm-hmm. He is, like you said, he is Forever Giant. I mean, he's a roving instructor during spring training, I believe. I know he sometimes works with the kids in the minors during the season. You've seen him in the dugout in uniform in, 2019? So we're talking 26 years after he was active as a Giant, right. And he's still coming back. So, with a guy like Will, he is one of the sons of the organization.
Yeah, and I did get a full interview with him. I might even post that in the show notes. It's like 4 years old. It was from the 2014 or 2015 season. I can't even remember. Where he was, and that's the other thing that Will Clark is. I know he was known as being a red ass, and he yelled a lot, profanities and all that stuff like that. But I always just kind of glommed onto him because of his passion for the game and how fun he seemed to have during that game. No matter, there were some altercations he had. Remember with Ozzie Smith at second base and the whole fight that happened there in St. Louis, and yeah, he was one of those guys that could go off because he was so intense. But overall, his game, he cared so much and he played with such passion. But it was that interview I had with him, and I've seen him at many games and just kind of was like, "Hi, how you doing?" But one time he was sitting down on the dugout bench, the forward dugout bench in the Giants dugout at AT&T or Oracle, and he was talking with Marty Lurie. Finished that interview, and I just sat like kind of a lion waiting, just like, I see my prey, I am stalking him, I am waiting, and I don't know if I should go for it. And he stood up and started to walk in front of me, and I just stood up and said, "Hey, Mr. Clark, do you mind if I grab you for a quick interview?" And, you expect the whole like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I got to go do this, or I got to do that, or whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, sure, buddy, no problem, whatever you need." It was just so chipper and nice. And he just like came over and put his arm around my shoulder, and we sat on the dugout. He's all, "What do you want to talk about?" And I was like, wow. didn't expect that, And we had a nice, 5-8 minute chat. And afterwards, off camera or off record, I told him about, without trying to be creepy sounding, told him about
such a fine line. Yeah,
it is, right? Because of course I'm not a stalker, but at the same time you're a fan, right? And so you never want to give that creep vibe, right? Like, I like you so much. No. It was more like, man, when I was a kid, when I was a kid, I looked up to you. When I was a kid, I got all this stuff signed by you, and it really meant a lot to me at the time. And and he appreciated those comments. He wasn't like, okay, I gotta go, So he's been a wonderful, wonderful person, and I hope to interview him again because he is a special assistant to the Giants. But I wanted to quickly review the Giants' retired numbers just to kind of review what they have going in the future. They do have Christy Mathewson and John McGraw, who do not have numbers retired. That was prior to numbers being put on uniforms. Number 3, Bill Terry. Number 4, Mel Ott. Number 11, Carl Hubble. 20, Monty Irvin. 24, of course, Willie Mays. 25, Barry Bonds, most recently. 27, Juan Marichal. 30, Orlando Cepeda. 35, Gaylord Perry. 42, Jackie Robinson, which is universal. And, of course, 44, Willie McCovey. And, of course, you add 22 to this, and then you're going to add eventually 28 and 40 for sure. It's not quite the Yankees, but the Giants are getting up there. I mean, you can see in 30 years, they're going to be like, so you can get anything in the 90s and 385s or 3 in the 80s, and that's about it.
But isn't that how it should be? I mean, the Giants are one of the oldest and honestly greatest franchises in the history of baseball. I'll take it to football for a second. I'm a Bears fan in football, and I take a certain pride in the fact that there are more Bears players in the Hall of Fame than any other franchise.
Right.
Because the Bears have been around for the entire 100-year existence of football, and now the Giants haven't been around for the entirety of the 150 years of baseball, but they're pretty damn close. So they should have guys like that. They should have a larger, monument, quote unquote, area for these retired numbers than say the Rays or that's a bad example. Say the Mets. All right, I'll use the Mets because the Mets came around in 1962. So while that's still quote unquote kind of new, it's not as new anymore. But so they should. They really should have one of those. I do not mind if they're one of those teams where they start running out of numbers a little bit, because there are guys who have impacted this franchise for many, many more years than just the time they wore the uniform.
All right, so our friend Ryan Leong was there yesterday, and he actually captured a ton of audio and a ton of photos, and I'm going to post a lot of this on our site. But just right now, I'm going to post a really short clip interview he had with Will Clark yesterday. So here it is.
Obviously, your fondest memory of '89. I mean, going to the World Series had to be great, but what stood out to you most in that year?
Well, it's just the fact that we were so close in '87, and that was our goal after the '87 season, was to get back, and try to get to the World Series. And '88 we had a little hiccup, but then '89, man, we made it. So I mean, that was my fondest memory. It was a great group of guys. We played well the whole season. We had a lot of fun together. We did a lot of stuff on the field and off the field together. It was a big family.
You're connected with the team now, obviously. Do you find that there just isn't the same kind of camaraderie with players today?
You know what? These guys have won 3 World Series, 2010, 2012, 2014. So, I mean, these guys have a camaraderie as well. But, I think that when you win, you always have a great group of characters, and we definitely had that.
Lastly, your memories of the Dravecky day that was yesterday, 30 years ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's unbelievable. Being on the field and just how emotional it was, and watching Dave, and then, at that game, that was a really important game, too, and he went out and dominated, so it was unbelievable.
So, yeah, that was Ryan Leong's clip there. Amazing little interview there with Will Clark. It was pretty cool. Anyway, he talked a little bit about, the '89 season and how it went. Of course, Dave Dravecky at the end. I mean, Eric, were you around for that '89 season game that Dave Dravecky had his comeback there at Candlestick Park? Because I myself was listening. I remember my mom left that day, and she actually said, "Okay, you need to vacuum up, the entire house. Get this done, dust, vacuum, whatever." I was like 15 years old, and so she left, and I listened to that game on KMBR, and it was just a magical game because no one expected Dave Dravecky to do what he did that day, and it was a crucial win. He had 2 starts that year. He went 2-0, so he helped them, win the pennant.
Yeah, I don't personally. Again, this is, from growing up in a different area of the country. Like, I knew about the Dravecky saga, I guess is a good way to put it. I knew about the, original arm injury and everything like that. But this is one of my gaps in those Giants fandom. This actually reminds me of the first time I was ever on TortureCast. Willie quizzed you and me on Giants trivia, and the only thing I didn't know was this Dave Dravecky game, because it was not it was not a national story. It was, but it wasn't. And back then, it's not like it is today. It's not like I could flip on any game at any time. I'll be honest, it really it doesn't register as a memory. It doesn't register as a changing moment. I know more of Dave Dravecky since he retired or had to retire, and since he lost the arm. I know more of him from that than I actually do from the time that he was with the team.
Yeah, I just remember that day in Montreal as well, when he rebroke his arm there, and Will Clark ran over and was the first one there. I mean, it was just, and even when they won the West, it was interesting because Dave Dravecky was in a sling, of course, at the time, and he recounted a story. He was on KMBR this week, and I was listening to him because they were recounting the date in which his comeback occurred in August. I think it was August 8th or 9th or whatever it was in 1989. And he's such an amazing speaker. He does all these speaking engagements for basically free all over the country. And he was talking about that day where he was suited up, but he had a sling on, and he wasn't sure if he should go out there. And all of his teammates are pouring out on the field to celebrate winning the West, and he just he couldn't help it, and he went out there. In the scrum, he got his arm rebroke, and it was painful, and he wasn't able to go back out and drink champagne with his teammates. And it was just sad because he never got to pitch again. That was it. That was the end of his career, and of course it came back, and he had to get the arm amputated, but he's alive because of it. So there's that. But what an incredible celebration yesterday. We've gone on so long about it. I will put up the 1989 Giant Celebration video link, which started with that music at the top of the show, in the show notes, as well as Inside the Clubhouse, kind of an in-house production that the Giants put on about the 89 Giants. I'll put both links there. So let's just... Oh, go ahead.
Last thought on this. Was Big Daddy there? Was Rick Russell there?
No, I saw Don Robinson. I don't believe Big Daddy was there.
Okay, because he's in my head, because I got some stuff from my mom in the mail this week, and one of the things is a ball that Rick Russell signed that year. My dad did some dental work on him, and because Russell lived in the Chicago area and before the season, and so he had Russell sign 3 baseballs, and then he gave them to the All-Stars on our team that year. So I have a Rick Russell signed baseball sitting on my shelf right now, and it's funny that I haven't had it for probably 15 years, and then the weekend that they're celebrating 89 was when my mom sent it to me. So that's why I was curious if Rick Russell was there.
That's really cool. No, I actually scanned it. Unfortunately, I couldn't see the whole celebration when it happened. I've seen half the video, and I did not see Rick Russell introduced. I do not believe he was there. And
like Chad said, I was going to say, like Chad said, he's going to put the link on there. And I'm going to also go to the link and watch it myself, because I missed a bunch of it yesterday, too.
No, I missed a ton of it. I still need to catch up on it. I was, as you know, I was celebrating a little bit of time with my son, took him to Monterey, and that was kind of during the game, and we spent the night in a hotel in Monterey and came back today. So it's catch-up time. Hey, we got other shit to do. All right, so let's briefly talk about the last 2 weeks. We already kind of touched upon it, but just in chronological order, they did lose 2 out of 3 in Philadelphia. They lost 2 out of 3 in Colorado, which was really disappointing. Last time they trounced Colorado at Coors Field, won 4 in a row there. All swept them in a 4-game series. Then they came back home, like you mentioned, and they were swept by the Nationals. And that was the biggest deflation, and I think that's been the biggest, whack to their postseason chances. Not just also because it's against the Nats, who lead the wild card race right now. They're 4.5 ahead of the Giants because they have the number 1 position, which is where you start doing that math of if they just won 1 game against the Nationals, that's a 2-game swing, right? And they would be only 2.5 games back of the Nationals. They'd still be 3.5 back of the Cardinals, but they would only be 2.5 back of the number 2 position instead of 3.5 back. So it's little math like that where, like, even if they lost that series, they still would be in a much better position than they are now. That was just really disappointing to me.
Yeah, I really thought after that Monday night with Samardzija, and like you said, Samardzija didn't necessarily pitch horribly, although he couldn't find the zone too often.
He couldn't find the zone,
yeah. He piled up the pitches, and the pace of the game sucked. And it set the tone for the whole series. The Giants had no life in any of those 3 games. It was very strange to see how much of a 180 they made after Washington left town and then Philly came into town.
Everybody in the press box was just like, "Whoa, what is going on?"
Yeah, it was like pulling teeth watching that game. It was so boring. And if we're getting bored watching it, you were sitting there in the press box, drinking your Diet Coke, getting bored. I'm sitting at home in my office getting bored. And so
I totally forgot about that. Okay, by the way, we got to rewind there. So I usually sit on the right side of the press box because there's this stretch of 6 seats that they don't have a name tag on them. Basically, most of the seats in the press box, there's 2 levels, right? And it stretches quite far, maybe 100 to 200 feet from left to right. And as far as press boxes go, I've been told that the Giants have the best press box in all of baseball in terms of location and level, and they're just prime seats. If they're not 5th deck down the right field line, whatever, a lot of these stadiums have these days.
Yeah, it's true. It is. The 3 I've been in, it's the best.
Yeah, it's prime territory, so I'm spoiled. I get it. Usually sit on the right side, so I go in on Monday and it's all taken, and I'm like, wow, that's unusual. It's not a playoff game. It's not it's a Monday night game. What the hell's going on? So I start looking, and everything says, Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and the Chronicle, and the Examiner, and the Tribune, and KNBR, and visiting this and that and this and that. There's 1,000 of these names all over the place. You can't sit in those. So I go all the way over to the left side, and there's 2 seats there. So I sit in one of them, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name. I can't remember the outlet she reports for. She's always there. She has pink hair. She's a really nice lady. But I asked her, she's like, no, go ahead, sit there. It's cool, all that. But it happened to be right and kind of in front of Alex Pavlovic. And so, him and I've never really introduced myself or talk. I figure it's if it happens, it happens. I'm not going to force anything. And then so Eric, I don't know, it was in the 3rd inning or something like that. I get this text, and it's all these pictures of me sipping my Diet Coke from the TV broadcast. I'm like, oh, shit.
I had to do a double take because, they were focused on Pavs when they
of course.
They did that. And I was like, hey, wait a second. Hey, that's Chad. I immediately whipped my phone out so that I could get it up on that screen so I could screenshot it and send it to you. That's the first time I've ever seen you.
No, that is the only. I'm sure it's been a random thing here or there, but that's the first confirmed TV spot I've ever had during a broadcast, which is kind of funny. But I suddenly had friends and family texting me going, "Oh my God, I just saw you on the broadcast. Don't pick your nose." That's. And I'm like, you know what? That's the danger you run, right? You're sitting up there, and the game, and so the link to Samardzija is the game was so goddamn slow. Because of his wildness, that really was the look on all our faces. That was an honest look. We were just ugh, this game is boring, right? I remember Grant Brisbee, I think he tweeted something to the effect of, well, Samardzija leaves after 98 pitches in the 8th inning. Oh, God, it's only the 4th. The way he wrote it was so funny. He's very artful in that. But no, it was a rough game, and they did lose it. Of course, Samardzija's been good all around it, but they get swept by the Nats, and then they go and they play Philly, and thank God they did well. I mean, thank God they did take 3 out of 4. I mean, we can talk about every game, but I just really wanted to focus on last night's game because it was the national broadcast. By the way, I just want to ask you real quick: did you watch any of the YouTube broadcast on Thursday?
On mute. I watched it on mute. Okay. If I didn't have to listen, I know Sean Estes was in the booth, but
right.
I if it's not Javi or Kirk and Kipe or our regular guys, I don't want to hear them. So
yeah,
I had it on mute for some reason. I don't remember what I was watching.
The audio wasn't too bad, to be honest, but I really enjoyed a lot of the stats that they brought, and no commercial breaks. It was just watching in between. I kind of enjoyed it. I know a lot of people were bitching like, I paid for this and I can't get this, and I'm like, dude, it's on YouTube. Like, it's on YouTube. It's free.
Yeah.
Like, that's your problem. Like, if you can't figure that out. I don't want to watch it. Why do I have to watch this on my phone? You don't have to watch it on your phone if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I got 5 TVs integrated with YouTube. I'm not, you know what I mean? It's
right, exactly.
Part of everyday life now.
It's like, it's normal. And if like you don't know how to put YouTube on your TV, then that's your issue. Sorry. MLB is not going to help you with that one.
I'm totally with you, though. I liked those in-between inning things. They did like profiles on certain players. I know that they profiled Bumgarner because it was a Bumgarner start. I know they profiled him at one point. And it actually, as weird as this sounds, just from watching the video, it seemed like a very Giants-heavy slant on the broadcast.
To me, it was. Most national broadcasts, including last night's on ESPN, always seem to be anti-Giants, especially Joe Buck and all that, no matter if it's true or not. It's just the way I feel, and a lot of Giants fans feel that way. But I think objectively, then I watched the YouTube broadcast, and I said, hey, this is actually kind of a pro-Giants broadcast, and not just because of Sean Estes, but just overall. And so I was like, all right. I don't feel as bad, coming down on Joe Buck and others. So, whatever.
Yeah, I didn't mind it at all. I thought the graphics were clean. They didn't stay in the way. No. And unlike the Facebook thing that they tried last year, there were you didn't have to swipe a chat out of the way to just get the game on the screen. And then the Facebook logo was blocking the score last year, and they didn't have any of these issues. So I really had no problem with it. But I'm also a guy who watches every game online, so I'm used to turning on my Fire Stick, opening up an app, and searching for the game.
So last night's game, let's just kind of corral the whole 4-game series into this. Obviously, Madison Bumgarner in his start went 6 innings of no-hit ball before he gave up a hit, but he pitched the 7 and gave up just 1 hit. He only had 85 pitches that night, but that was explained by Bruce Bochy because his previous start in Colorado was so poor. And Bum was so pissed. And this, again, speaks to his character and his willingness to potentially stay with the Giants, that he did a lot of extra work on the side in between starts. And so he had a little bit of wear and tear on his arm as he worked on his arm slot and all the issues he was working on. So Bochy knew this. And so he took him out at 85. And, of course, a lot of fans were like, what the hell? He's 1 hit. Why aren't you? Well, it's like, well, okay, he's helping him out. And they have the bullpen that can stand it. So he just had an outstanding start in that 5-0 win, and that was really, really good to see after that opening start there.
Yeah, Bum's a streak stopper, and he absolutely showed that. But I mean, you talk about last night's game. Last night's game, it really could be the game of the year. If the Giants actually do this, we're going to point to Sunday's game, and everything that they did, they got to Arrieta early, and then Arrieta shut them down for a brief time because he only lasted 3 innings. And then Connor Menez didn't have it. And so after 1 decent inning, he was out, a short time later. And Bochy masterfully navigated the bullpen, knowing that they had a day off today, navigated the bullpen in such a way that he threw Will Smith out there in the 8th inning because Tony Watson just wasn't getting the job done again. And I don't know what's going on.
Lately,
I don't know what's going on there.
It's a lately thing, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know. Maybe he was good buddies with Melanson, and that's part of it. Maybe that's reading too much into it.
Team chemistry.
Yep, there you go. Everybody's right. Should have knew it. But
it's the domino that made it all fall.
It was Mark Melanson. So
said no one.
All right, exactly. But not only last night, they jumped out to an early lead, and then they lost the lead, and then they were able to climb back, and then Pilar coming through with his triple with 2 outs. I believe there was 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th when he hit that triple before Will Smith even came to the plate. And then having Will Smith come to the plate and drive in 2 more runs, it's a game that we're going to remember. These are the fun games I'm talking about during a season. Scooter Gennett had a splash hit to tie the game up. Everything played out the way that the Giants would want it to, and it really felt like the win of the year. It absolutely did. Mike Yastrzemski homered also to help bring them back. Oh, I'm sorry. Scooter brought them within 1 run. Scooter's... No, actually, it gave them the lead.
It gave them the 6-5 lead, yeah. Right. And then it was tied on a sacrifice fly. So that's the thing that's weird about this, is that this is where the statistics of baseball become funky, right? Over a long career, these things are evened out, so it's not a big deal. But in a microcosm, it is kind of funky, like on a game-by-game basis, because Will Smith comes in with runners on second and third with one out, right? And a one-run lead after Scooter gave him the splash hit lead. The splash landing home run. Nobody came in with one out.
You mean when he came in to pitch? Yeah.
Yes, when he came in to pitch, right? So he gave up a sacrifice fly, and that tied the game. Now, because it was the 8th inning, it was considered a blown save, which is crazy, right?
Yeah, it is.
So and he gets the next guy on a fly out, right? So he gets two guys. Well, actually, there was an intentional walk in between there, because the guy from second also went to third. They walked the next guy, so his runner's on the corner. He did it intentionally, and then he got the next guy to fly out to right field to Yaz. So he blew the save, but he got both guys out. It's funky how that happens, right? So yeah, that's how it happens. It's like in his stat line, he's going to have another blown save, but he got the win, of course, eventually. So yeah, like you said, Bruce put him in because Watson wasn't getting the job done. He allowed the walk and then the double for second and third after one out, pulled him, puts in Smith early, which has been rare this year. Bochy's done that in the past, and we've certainly seen it way, way, way back with Dusty Baker. But he put him in a one-out situation. He allowed the sacrifice fly, whatever. So he still wanted to pitch the ninth. Even though, because at the time, basically what happened was Kevin Pillar hit the triple that put them ahead. So now Bruce is thinking, okay, I have my closer that's up next. Now we have the lead. So he's faced with the decision of, do I put in a pinch hitter to either try and extend the lead, or do I keep my guy in who I know closes the games well? If it was tied, let's say Kevin Pillar hit a single and it didn't score anyone. I can't remember who was on at the time. I think Will Smith, there would have been a pinch hitter, right? Because it's a tie game. But once you go ahead, you're thinking, as Bruce Bochy's thinking, well, Will Smith, I want no one else but Will Smith closing this game out. So we have a one-run lead. I'll just put him out there. What the heck? What's the worst that could happen? Aside from, fracturing his arm from a fastball to the left arm, other than that,
right.
He's going to strike out horribly. So, but he can still pitch the ninth, and that's what we want. So sure enough, he puts in Will Smith with runners on second and third, and it's his first major league plate appearance. He's never been to the plate with a helmet in the major leagues, and this is what happened.
It's the last time 3 Giants made their first career plate appearances in the same game. Oh my. Slashed into right! And it's a big first career plate appearance. A 2-run single for Will Smith.
That was so fun. Unfortunately, I did not see that live. I got the update on my phone, and I had to watch the highlight later with my son. But to see the sheer joy of his face pointing back to the dugout and pointing kind of like Will Clark style. And the other thing that I think was amazing about it is that, first of all, it was a professional swing. It was not a fake-looking duck, right? I mean, it was a good swing. Nice lace to right field. Number one, they tried to throw him out at first base, and they almost got him. They almost got him, right? Second of all, it was a 3-1 count. I cannot believe he didn't take that pitch. Like, all they're thinking is, just get on base, right, for the next hitter. Like, you're not a hitter. If you get on base, it's bases loaded, and the next guy's up. Who's a hitter? A professional hitter. He should have been taking that pitch, no matter if it was down the middle, and he did not. So...
Instead of hitting 95 miles an hour the other way.
Yeah, it was incredible. And so, and the other thing that I think as a manager that would have been hard to manage or expect is if he strikes out or even walks, his heart and rhythm and adrenaline, nothing's really changing too much because it's expected, right? Oh, I walked. Oh, I struck out. Oh, I flied out. I did whatever. I'm going to go out and I'm going to pitch the bottom of the ninth. or the top of the ninth. After you get your first major league hit and 2 RBIs in your first plate appearance, I would have been a little afraid, even though if you have a 3-run lead, it's like going back out there, I would have totally sent him out. Don't get me wrong. Just like, what is that going to do to the pitcher out there? He's thinking like, I got my first hit. You know, like that could screw some people up.
Not only that, Rickard doubled right after that. And so Smith had to go first to third, and they obviously held him at third. So he was running around the bases when his adrenaline was amped up, and the Phillies tried to take advantage of it. The first guy in the top of the ninth bunted on Will Smith, and I'm certain that he did that knowing that Smith had just been running around, and Smith fell down as he made the throw, and Belt made a hell of a scoop at first base.
Oh, it was incredible.
You mentioned it earlier. Belt's defense has been phenomenal this year. He is helping contribute in other ways. I'm still frustrated with the guy, but he's still helping contribute in other ways. And so I'm like with you, I would have worried about that. But then the guy bunted, he got out right away. And then Smith strikes out Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing. Like it wasn't that big of a deal at all. He just like, all right, I'm just going to keep throwing you sliders away, and you'll swing at one of them eventually. And he did. That's the Will Smith game.
It was beautiful. Well, sum of all the parts is the Giants are 1 game under 500. They're 3.5 back, and they're still in it. Their chances aren't great. They've diminished a little bit, but who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So let's talk about who's hot and who's not. Who's hot since we recorded. Well, not everyone's in the last 2 weeks. There's some discrepancies here. Bumgarner, 2.78 ERA over his last 9 starts. That's not over 2 weeks. Just as kind of his second half kind of thing going on. Kevin Pillar, over the last 2 weeks, is 10 for 22 with 2 home runs and 5 RBI. And the Shark, his last 4 starts, 24 innings pitched, only a 1.13 ERA, only given up 12 hits in those 24 innings, and he has a 148 batting average against. I mean, I kind of feel bad the game I went to because he didn't give up a run, but he walked a lot of guys, and he had so many pitches, and it got into their bullpen. But overall, his stat line wasn't the worst, except for the walks, So overall, those are the guys that have been doing well. Who's not? I mean, Eric, it's getting kind of old, but the Brandons are on this list every freaking podcast. I mean, it's like you were saying earlier, Farhan is not going to keep extending the benefit of the doubt to these guys too much longer. I know Belt has a huge contract, and he's contributing in other ways with his defense and his OPS, or his on-base percentage. Crawford, yes, his defense is very good, but that's it. He's 6 for his last 42, 143 in that stretch, 10 Ks, a 367 OPS. I mean, that's OPS. That's on-base percentage plus slugging is only 367. That is like, ouch.
Yeah, it's funny because Joe Panik used to be our resident lovable guy on the Who's Not list, and the Brandons have decided to pick up the torch for him.
Yeah, Brandon Belt is one of the guys that I've always talked about. I shouldn't put words in your mouth. That if you give him a full season without getting injured, he's going to do well. And here we are, 2019. Yeah. Finally a season in which he hasn't had any major injuries, and he's shit in the bed. I mean,
yeah, where's the 25 home runs? Where's the shooting a gap at some point?
Yeah, and it's been hard to watch because, again, another guy I love. He is a very sweet individual, a good human being, a fun interview. He's all those things you want in a baseball player, except the stats. You know what I mean? It's like, damn it. You pull for these guys, and you just hate it when this happens. But Brandon Belt is 9 for 44. That's a 203 average. Tony Watson, who you mentioned, for some reason has just completely soured, much like maybe he misses Melanson. I don't know. But his last 5 games, 3 2/3, 6 earned runs, 8 hits, 4 walks, and a 471 batting average against. That's almost half of the guys he's faced have gotten hits.
Yeah, and not only that, you talk about 4 walks. So what you're saying is not only is he giving up free base runners, he's then letting the other guys knock them in.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know what's up with him. Yeah, and then the next guy, my computer is open. The next guy.
Hey,
Sean Anderson.
Resurrected. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And trust me, it took 3 restarts just to get here. Anderson, in his last 2 starts, he's thrown 8 innings pitched and given up 7 earned runs. And honestly, he just hasn't looked good at all. I mean, you put the eye test out there as well, and Anderson looks like the rookie who's kind of hitting a wall, and he can't push through it, which is an overall problem with the Giants as it is that we talked about earlier. So, Anderson, I'm sure he'll get another shot to, continue as a starting pitcher, but I'm pretty sure the leash is getting shorter and shorter when it comes to him.
Yeah, it was like Tyler Beede, against the Phillies, that one game that they lost against him. He struck out 5 of the first 8 batters, and he was cruising. And then he walks 2 guys in front of Bryce Harper, and it just things like that keep happening. Connor Menez the other day, yesterday he started. Now, I'm not going to attribute the whole national, televised start as what happened to him. So I have this guy I work out with at my little CrossFit or whatever. He's a younger kid. And ironically, his name is also Connor, by the way. He went to high school with Menez. So he knows him very well. And so he's been pulling for him. And so we talked. In fact, today I was there at the 5 o'clock class tonight. And we were chatting, and I was like, dude, your buddy Menez, what's up? And he's like, I don't know, man. And he's like, he's losing control. Like, he's very good at getting guys to fish for that outside pitch in the minor leagues. He's not getting guys to fish for that outside pitch in the major leagues. And I said, well, yeah, that's the difference. These are professional hitters. They see this pitch that's 3 inches outside in the lower half, this curveball or slider that's coming in to a right-hander, and they don't fish for it. In the minor leagues, they do, or to a left-hander on the outside part of the plate. So that's what he needs to adjust to. And he has decent stuff. I watched him yesterday, and he did okay in the very, very beginning of the game, but he was pulled in the second.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper flares one. Again, it was a curveball on the outside, and Bryce Harper, being the professional hitter he is, adjusts his swing mid-swing, extends his arms, and uses his wrists and flicks it into center field for a 2-run RBI single. And it was kind of like, okay, that's what you need to deal with, dude. I mean, you can't – he didn't hit it well, but he placed it well. He knew exactly what he was doing with that pitch. So you need to combat that. So the Giants, after Shark and Bum, with guys that just are not stepping up. And the Giants have a long history, like you just referred to, of guys who come up with flashes of like, oh, this is the next Timmy, this is the next guy, this is the next, and then it doesn't work out. It just doesn't work out. Look at Ty Block. Who the hell was he picked up by? Yeah, Derek Rodriguez. Yeah, Baltimore picked him up.
So Baltimore didn't think that Mike Yastrzemski was good enough. Right. They'll take Ty Block.
I know.
No judgment, Baltimore. But Derek Rodriguez is who I think of initially, because he made some comments last week about how he's frustrated with being on this constant shuttle and how it is in the back of your mind, and he wishes that they wouldn't do this so much with the young guys with the options. And all I wanted to scream when I was reading that was, well, then pitch better.
Yeah.
If you had pitched better earlier in the season, you wouldn't be on this shuttle. You would be in the starting rotation. It was simple as that. You have the opportunity to earn your spot, just like Connor Menez did, just like Tyler Beede, just like Sean Anderson. All of them have their opportunity to earn their way into it, and nobody is stepping up to do it. And it's kind of like we're all crossing our fingers when Cueto comes back, because Cueto again has made a couple more appearances in the minors, and he is working his way back, and they really think Cueto is going to be back by the end of the month.
I know. It's awesome. All right, so let's revisit. We'll do this really, really quick. Not quite auctioneer style, but let's see. We're looking at show notes right now. I'm going to take the list of transactions and then jump over to the right of this screen down to the red. Why don't you take the second half of that? Are you cool with that?
Yeah, I totally see. You want me to take the under the red stuff?
Yeah. All right. So trade deadline day. And this is going to be a very quick hit because we've already touched upon most of this. But just to kind of summarize what's happened, since the trade deadline or during the trade deadline. Okay, so trade deadline day, they traded Drew Pomerantz and Ray Black to the Brewers for Mauricio Dubon, who we talked about. He was the Brewers' number 3 prospect, so we're going to see what happens with him. They traded Mark Melancon to the Braves for right-handed pitcher Dan Winkler and right-handed pitcher Tristan Beck. They traded Sam Dyson to the Twins for right fielder Jalen Davis and right-handed pitcher Kei-Wei Tang and right-handed pitcher Prelander Baroa. They also sent cash to the Reds for Scooter Gennett. They traded left-handed pitcher Jacob Lopez to the Rays for left-handed left fielder Joe McCarthy. They called up Andrew Suarez, right-handed pitcher Gustave, and of course D-Rod at that time. On August 1st, this is the day after the trade deadline, they placed Dickerson on the 10-day injured list, which he's still on for a right oblique strain. They designated Dan Winkler, who they just picked up in that trade, for assignment. They signed free agent right-handed pitcher Justin Haley to a minor league contract. They selected the contract of Sam Selman from the River Cats. They activated Jeanette. They DFA'd Tyler Austin. They optioned D-Rod to Sacramento. They released Nick Vincent. They recalled Duggar from the River Cats. They sent Dan Winkler outright to the River Cats because he cleared waivers. They claimed Ty Blockoff, the Orioles, who we just talked about, claimed Ty Blockoff of waivers, and then they activated Evan Longoria on August 4th. Then, also the same day, they sent Johnny Cueto on a rehab assignment to Arizona League for the Giants' black team. That's the rookie league. And then, again, on August 4th, they optioned Zach Green to the River Cats. There's a lot more that's happened in the last week. Take it away.
I was going to say, it is amazing how many transactions the Giants have had. So then, starting on August 5th, they claimed right-handed pitcher Ryan Dull off waivers from Oakland and they optioned him down to Sacramento. Based on that move, they designated Joe Panik for assignment on 8/6. And then optioned Sam Selman and Sam Selman back to Sacramento. They recalled Williams Jerez from Sacramento. This is all on August 6th. They recalled Menez, and on the 7th, Joe Panik refused his assignment to Sacramento, and he was given his outright release. On the 8th, Sean Anderson, who we'd previously been talking about, was put on the 10-day injured list with a right middle finger blister, and honestly, I'd forgotten that in all this. They activated Travis Bergen from the 60-day DL. Now, because of that, Steven Duggar took a tumble when making a catch a day or two before that, and they put him on the 10-day injured list with a left shoulder AC joint sprain. They then recalled right fielder Joey Rickard from Sacramento, and I'll be honest, I'd never heard of Joey Rickard until he took his first at bat.
Me either. Yeah.
Yeah. I tweeted Joey who? I had no idea. Yeah. I feel like I've heard the name, but I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of Jody Garrett. They recalled Sam Selman from the River Cats. Then the next day, they transferred Steven Duggar from the 10-day IL to the 60-day IL, and they're now considering surgery on that shoulder. Yeah. So that's 2 seasons in a row. Duggar's season has been cut short because of a shoulder injury. I believe it's a different shoulder than last year, though. Also, it really sucks because I thought Duggar was going to have a fantastic year, and that didn't happen. On that same day, they sent Johnny Cueto from Arizona Giants, the Fall League black team, to the orange team. Then they claimed Kyle Bearclaw, if you haven't had breakfast, off waivers from the Washington Nationals and optioned him to Sacramento. They sent Sam Selman back down to Sacramento. Tyler Austin, after being designated for assignment, accepted his outright to Sacramento. And today's the 12th. And then yesterday, they signed free agent right-handed pitcher Carlos Torres to a minor league deal and already got rid of Ryan Dull, who they designated for assignment. So Ryan Dull was with the club
7 days, I think.
7 days. Yep, 7 days. So after the game last night, they optioned Connor Menez back to Sacramento. I don't think they've made a corresponding move just yet. And they also claimed right-handed pitcher Birch Smith off waivers from the Milwaukee Brewers.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
Sold. I mean,
we did not ever have to talk about this many transactions in previous years. This is insane.
It is, but again, I'm okay with it because look at what Farhan did in LA. He's trying to do the same thing. And honestly, we should want to be the Dodgers right now. So I'm totally happy to see all this. He's taking flyers left and right, and that's what you do. You know, Sam Dyson was a reclamation project, and they were able to trade him for prospects.
Yeah.
So any one of these guys.
They flipped him.
Right. And some of these guys they're looking to flip. Some of these guys they're looking to keep. So it's a shame on the Duggar front. It's good that Longo's back. Sean Anderson, we'll see if he comes back from injury okay. We'll see if he really has a blister on his right middle finger or if this is a Derek Holland injury.
The phantom injury, yes.
All I could think of was Derek Holland when that happened.
Oh, I know.
So that is the list of transactions. And is this minor league report from last week from me?
It was, but I updated it to current stats.
Okay, you did update it. Jalen Davis, who they got in the – I have to go back and look at which trade it was. Oh my God! Which trade was it? Okay, the Twins trade, the Dyson trade.
Yeah, the Dyson trade.
Jalen Davis is an outfielder that apparently has a little bit of thump, and in his first 9 games in Sacramento, he had a very interesting experience because he was traded. Oh no, it wasn't him. Dubon was that one. Sorry, Jalen Davis in his first 9 games for Sacramento has gone 13 for 30, which is a .433 batting average. 7 of those 13 hits are for extra bases, 5 doubles, 2 homers. He's driven in 10 guys and has already had 2 different 3 RBI games. And I'm not talking like he hit a 3-run homer in each game. He had separate at-bats in each game where he drove in runs, which is what you want to see out of your hitter. And that's the minor league report we have for this week because it's curious to see. I was thinking of Dubon. Dubon had the really weird thing when he got traded. Sacramento was in, I believe, San Antonio.
Yes,
that's the AAA affiliate of the Brewers.
He had to switch dugouts. Yeah,
right. He did. He literally drove to the park that day because that had been his home park, and had to go to the other locker room. Like he stopped by the Missions locker room for a minute and then went over to the River Cats locker room. So they're starting to make an impact. Some of these young kids. I know that they're seeing this, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Jalen Davis with the major league club before the season's over.
No, I mean, he's been tattooing the ball down there, and so we'll see what happens, but he was a highly touted prospect. Dubon was the number 3 prospect in the Brewers system, so I think the Giants made off pretty well. We'll see what happens. Time will actually be the test as it normally is. So
I mean, when you make 85 transactions, at least 4 of them have got to stick. So, I mean, I appreciate
the shotgun
the
approach,
effort.
Right?
It absolutely is.
Oh, it's so funny. All right, so let's talk about this week in Giants history. This is actually for last podcast, but it's so worthy that I kept it in there. But on this date, on August 7th, 2007, Barry Bonds, hit number 756 to pass Hank Aaron on the all-time list. I mean, it's just one of those iconic, things.
Bonds hits one high.
Here we go.
Hits it deep. It is out of here. 756. Bonds stands alone. He is on top of the all-time home run list. What a special moment for Barry Bonds. And what a special moment for these fans here in San Francisco.
I'm sure you were watching then. I was watching then. Sorry, the audio cut out for a second and came back in. But it's crazy because, we think of Facebook as being like a modern thing, a recent thing, social media and whatever. I joined Facebook in 2007. And this was, one of, not the first post, but in the first year, I posted about this on Facebook. And it's just really weird. Like, it's been that long. It's been 12 years since he hit that home run. And I wasn't there personally. Now, I was there for number 73 at AT&T, well, whatever it was at the time, Pac Bell, when he hit it off the Dodgers and the knuckleballer, Russ Springer. I was there for number 500. I was there for number 600. I was there for number 660 when he tied or passed Willie Mays. But I was not there for this one. And, the Giants always did a great job because all the home runs they anticipated by Barry Bonds were such big, just celebrations, right? These milestones. And like in this video that I just played, you can't see, or you just heard the audio of, there's fireworks coming up, there's sparklers, there's things unfolding from the outfield. It's like they prepare for all this stuff. And those big momentous home runs that I was in attendance for, it's all this like black and gold, foil confetti that's falling from this rafters and fireworks, and like they planned for this shit, This is like 12, 13, 14 years ago, but I think no matter what you think about Barry Bonds, he really did transcend the game. And I know he may have transcended his body and physical performance, but it was still a lot of fun to watch, and certainly a lot better than watching nothing but walks, home runs, and strikeouts in today's game, which take up about 80% of the plays that happen. So
yeah, I appreciate that memory. That's actually, that night is my last best Giants memory I ever had with my father. He was alive for 2010, but we were on the phone. I was in Florida. But we were watching this game against the Nationals and Mike Bassick because it was on ESPN at the time. Like every game was on ESPN. Like I could watch every Giants game during certain stretches because of Barry Bonds. And this is totally one of those moments where, we were hugging and, you think about it. And that totally came out of nowhere. I totally forgot that had just passed. And I mean, I'm staring at his rookie card right now, which I also received in the mail from my mother. Not signed, but his rookie card. And it has a prominent place right here in my office because Barry meant so much to me, the Giants, and us as fans. It's funny. Right. You talked about Will Clark. That's kind of how I feel about Barry Bonds.
Yeah. Now, he was a special individual, and I know he has a bad rap and a bad rep with most of the country, to be honest. He's been vilified as kind of one of the, Mount Rushmores of steroid use. And I'm not going to say he didn't. I mean, we all know he did, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't true. But my objective, reasoning obviously has to come through as a scientist, and it's like, yes, I do believe he took steroids. I mean, given all the circumstantial evidence. But it's frustrating because, there's guys like Sammy Sosa and Rafael Palmeiro and others that have been also ostracized from the Hall of Fame because of their and Roger Clemens for their supposed steroid use. I get it, but there's guys like in the current, Alex Rodriguez. I don't know if he's ever going to make it. Of course, same thing. But like Ryan Braun with the whole FedEx thing that happened,
right?
But there's a lot of other players that snuck in, like Jeff Bagwell, right? He was another guy that a lot of people said, oh, he definitely took steroids. But again, we're talking about circumstantial evidence, and he said, he said, she said. But he made the Hall of Fame. And in no way are his stats anywhere close to Barry Bonds. Like, nowhere close. So you start playing that gray area there, and the holier-than-thou writers that still stick to their laurels about not voting in Barry Bonds and others. It's kind of like, how do you know? Right. Specifically, who did and who did not use steroids? There's no doubt in my mind, and I think even the writers' minds, that there are players in the Hall of Fame that did steroids, period. And, not just a Jeff Bagwell type of guy, but others. Or even previous generations with greenies and uppers and all that stuff, right? Yeah. And then you have your nefarious gambling addicts, not just your Pete Roses who are banned, but others who never got caught. So it's like, it's a fine moral line that I just don't think writers should walk. I really don't. I really, really don't. Unless it's 100% proven and it's out in the open and all the evidence is there. I just think the whole hearsay, is like, well, yeah, he probably did it, but how are you going to be the moral judge and jury for every single player? Because you're going to be like, well, this guy has evidence, but this guy has a little more evidence, so I'm not going to vote for him, even though this guy has 3 times as many home runs and RBIs, but this guy, and it's like, you start playing that game, and it's like, it's a black hole to me.
Yeah, it is. And I've never been to Cooperstown, and I'm really trying to hold on to the day that he gets inducted to make my first trip.
Yeah, well, what does he have? 1 or 2 years left, right, of eligibility?
I think it's 2 years. I think it's 2 years left of eligibility. Yeah.
So I know he keeps creeping up, and he's getting close, but I did think it was going to happen after the first couple of years. I don't think it's going to happen now. I really don't. I think there's going to be this last-minute push of like, nope, F you, see you later.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a veterans committee or something like that.
Yeah. after he's dead.
God, that would suck.
Sad to say. All right, well, coming up, the Giants have today was an off day, a Monday. They have 2 at home against Oakland. And hey, look, Oakland's been quiet, guys. I mean, in terms of national media, they've been a very, very good team this year, way better than the Giants. So that's going to be a tough call. But Madison Bumgarner is going against Brett Anderson tomorrow night, so we'll see what happens there. Hopefully the Giants have the advantage. And then they have 4 at Arizona, in Arizona. So, again, they're 3.5 out of the wild card. They were 2.5 out last week, so it's only a change of a game, and another team has gotten in front of them. But it's one of those things where in a week when we record again, they could be tied for the wild card, or they could be 5 games back. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to think about what could happen. It's depressing if it's the bad side, but it's encouraging if it's the positive side.
I mean, the 2 games versus Oakland, Bay Bridge series, it's fun. Get to the park early, see the art show. These 4 games at Arizona are key games. As much as I felt like that Nat series last week was a key series, I feel like this Diamondback series is a key series. Because if the Giants can go in there and win 3 out of 4, then they're saying to the Diamondbacks, we're not going away. You're going to have to deal with us if you still want to make the playoffs. And Arizona's playing above their head a little bit. I mean, they went
especially they got rid of Greinke,
Right. They went into sell mode, and they managed to hang in this race and pass the Giants once again, which is more based on the Giants losing.
Yeah.
So those 4 games in Arizona, they're going to be key games. And I hope when we're sitting here talking next week, we're talking about at least a 4-2 week, possibly a 5-1 week. Because right now when Bumgarner steps on the mound, I don't feel like they're going to lose. And he's going to be pitching tomorrow, and he'll be pitching Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. He has 2 starts out of the 6. That's a good point. All right, so Major League Baseball today also released their 2020 schedule, and so looking at the Giants, they open in L.A. against the Dodgers. It's the 11th consecutive season the Giants are opening on the road. It's crazy. They just keep doing it. So I'm not necessarily against it. It's just I don't quite understand why it's always going to be that's going to happen. They also play the White Sox.
They ask for it, though. That's why.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Maybe they need more time to get Oracle ready. They're playing the AL Central. So the White Sox, Tigers, and Royals are all coming to Oracle next year, and then they travel to Target Field, their first time to Target Field. They also visit the Indians and the Tigers.
And their home opener is a week after that game against the Dodgers as well.
Yeah.
And over the All-Star break, the last couple of years, MLB has put 1 game in the Thursday night spotlight. So while 28 teams are off, 2 teams are playing. This year it was Houston and Texas. Last year it was St. Louis and Chicago. Next year it'll be the Giants and the Dodgers.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the All-Star game is at Dodger Stadium on that Tuesday, and then that Thursday the Giants will start a 4-game series in LA. So they will be the center of the baseball universe there for that one night, because everybody's itching to put baseball back on, so they'll definitely be tuning in.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, and I know the Giants, all of baseball, they're going back to the 19 games against your division opponents next year. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's also weird living where I live. The Giants will be in Atlanta this season for their final road series, and next year they'll be in Atlanta April 17th, 18th, and 19th. So it's kind of weird how that works out. One year you cannot see a team. You might not see a team until July, and then the next year you'll see them right off the bat, and then never see them again.
Right.
So I'm already looking ahead to next year and going up to Atlanta because that's a lot easier to swing in April than it is in September.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we always talked about, me flying out there for an Atlanta series. I wish it could happen this August. Just can't.
No.
But maybe next April. We'll talk about it on the side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. April's good. It's a good time for that. It's not as hot here either, so it's not a bad time.
Yeah, we'll get the Giants hopefully to maybe get us some passes. Anyway,
we'll
talk about that. So that's going to do it for it. A long extended episode 175 of the Torchcast, but hey, there's a lot of shit to cover. You can follow us collectively at Torchcast, like us on Facebook, follow us there, but also check out our website, torchcast.com. We have our website, hosting our podcast. You can also get your your podcasts at wherever you download your podcasts from. You can follow us individually at 2 Odd Hits for Eric. That's with the number 2. Myself at ChadK21. Do you have anything else tonight, Eric?
No, I don't. I'm just going to retire from writing, and then when I write, it'll just be a shock to everybody, so I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah, we had a plan to bring back Guess That Giant tonight. To be honest, with all the volume we had tonight, we couldn't justify it. It was just too much. We still went way too long, but we hope you enjoyed it. So
yes, we were playing some catch up. Next week we'll be back to an hour or less.
Yeah. All right. Well, for Eric, this is Chad signing off for episode 175. We'll see you next week for episode 176. Until then, a boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.